Alright, imagine this for a second.
You're walking outside, hands full, phone still in your pocket, and yet you're getting directions, listening to music, maybe even capturing a moment without pulling out a screen. That's the promise smart glasses have been making for years. But here's the uncomfortable truth most videos avoid. In 2026, only a few smart glasses actually feel good to live with. So which ones earn a place on your face and which ones still belong on a demo table? Let's find out, because the answer is more surprising than it looks at first glance. Smart glasses don't fail because the tech is bad. They fail because they forget how human faces work. Heavy frames, awkward pressure points, heat, short battery life. Most people don't quit smart glasses because of features. They quit because of discomfort. So the first thing I look at isn't AI or cameras. It's whether you forget you're wearing them. And this is where Meta Ray-Ban glasses instantly explain their success without saying a word. They look like normal Ray-Ban frames. They sit like normal glasses, and they behave like something you can actually wear all day. No display, no floating.
Windows, just audio, a camera, and voice control.
But stay with me, because the absence of a display is not a weakness here. It's the reason they work. The speakers fire sound directly toward your ears, so it feels like someone whispering to you, not blasting music into the room. Calls feel natural, music feels personal. And because everything connects directly to your phone, there's no learning curve. You say a wake phrase, ask a question, record a video, or take a photo, all hands-free. The camera captures first person. Footage that feels honest and natural, not like a chest mount or a shaky phone clip. But here's the part people miss. These glasses never beg for attention. They wait. That restraint is exactly why people actually keep wearing them weeks later. But wait, what happens when you do want visuals? That's where display-based smart glasses step in, and this is where things get tricky. Renio X2 takes a very different approach. These are real AR glasses with transparent displays that place information directly in front of your eyes. Navigation arrows, translations, short text prompts visible without blocking the real world. But here's the question that decides whether they're worth buying. Does that information help you in motion or distract you? In practice, the display stays modest in size, which sounds underwhelming until you realize why it matters. You can glance, understand, and move on. Your brain isn't pulled into a screen. And that matters when you're crossing a street or walking through a crowded place. The X2 includes cameras and microphones to support visual and voice-based features, and it connects to your phone for processing and connectivity. You're not wearing a computer on your face. You're wearing a window that borrows intelligence from the device already in your pocket. That design keeps the glasses relatively lightweight compared to full XR headsets. But I'll be honest, this is not forget it's there device like Meta Ray-Ban. You feel them, you notice them. And that's fine, as long as you know why you're wearing them. These are for moments when seeing information matters more than disappearing tech. Now, let me shift the mood for a second, because there's a type of smart glasses that doesn't care about blending in or being subtle at all. X-Real Air 2 Pro sits in a completely different category. These aren't trying to be social. They're trying to be immersive. Plug them into a phone, laptop, or handheld console, and suddenly you're looking at a massive virtual screen floating in front of you. Watching a movie feels like sitting in a private theater. Gaming feels bigger than any tablet could offer. And the electrochromic dimming lets you control how much of the real world you want to see, which is surprisingly important when light changes around you. But here's the thing, these are not walking around glasses. You don't casually wear them to the store. They're for seated moments, flights, hotel rooms, desks. And that distinction matters because disappointment usually comes from wearing a device outside its intended role. If you treat X-Real Air 2 Pro like a portable cinema instead of everyday eyewear, the experience suddenly makes sense. The weight, the cable, the awareness that you're wearing tech, all of it becomes acceptable because of what you're getting in return. But if you want something you forget about while moving through your day, keep watching because not all smart glasses are trying to replace screens. Rocket Max lands right between practicality and immersion. It focuses on doing one thing well, giving you a large, stable floating display through a simple wired connection. No complex setup, no flashy promises. Just plug in and use it. And sometimes, that simplicity is exactly what makes something worth buying. especially for people who don't want accounts, ecosystems, or constant updates running the show. But even here, the same question returns: when do you actually wear them? And then there's Snap's spectacles, which quietly break every rule we just discussed. These are not personal productivity tools. They're shared AR devices. Bright visuals, wide field of view, and effects designed to be experienced with other people wearing the same glasses. You see the same virtual object. In the same real space, you move around it together. It's playful, creative, and undeniably early. Battery life is limited. Comfort is secondary. And yet, when you see shared AR working in real space, something clicks. This isn't about replacing your phone. It's about creating digital moments that belong to a place, not a screen. And that idea has consequences we're only beginning to understand. Now pause for a second, because by this point, it should feel obvious that there's no single best smart glasses. That's not a failure of the industry. It's a sign it's finally maturing. Meta Ray-Ban wins when you want something invisible and social. Ranio X2 wins when visual context matters. X-Real Air 2 Pro dominates private entertainment. Snap spectacles. Explore shared experience. Each one succeeds by refusing to do everything at once. And that leads to the most important buying advice nobody gives. Don't ask what smart glasses can do. Ask when you'll wear them. Commuting, traveling, creating, relaxing, exploring each moment demands a different level of presence from technology. The best smart glasses in 2026 are the ones that respect that boundary, because once something lives on your face, trust becomes the real feature. Trust that it won't distract you at the wrong moment. Trust that it won't feel embarrassing. Trust that it adds value quietly instead of demanding attention. And the glasses that understand that, those are the ones actually worth buying. So, if you're watching this trying to find one device that replaces everything, you're looking in the wrong direction. But if you're looking for a device that fits naturally into a specific part of your life, smart glasses in 2026 finally give you that option. And that's the shift most people don't notice until they experience it themselves. Alright, now that we've laid out the landscape and you can clearly see that smart glasses in 2026 aren't fighting for a single crown, the real question becomes much more personal and, honestly, much more interesting. What actually happens when you try to live with these glasses for days, not minutes? Not in a demo, not in a controlled environment, but during boring routines, unexpected moments, and the parts of life no keynote ever shows. Because this is where most smart glasses quietly fail, and where a few finally start to make sense. Let's start with something deceptively simple: mornings. You wake up, grab your glasses, and put them on before your day even begins. This is the first stress test. With something like Meta Ray-Ban glasses, nothing changes visually. And that's exactly the point. You're not greeted by overlays. There's no boot-up animation demanding attention. You just hear a short weather update, a notification read aloud if you want it, music starting as you move around your room. It feels more like adding a layer of audio awareness than wearing a computer. And that subtlety is why these glasses survive real life. Because the moment tech makes your morning feel heavier, people abandon it. But what happens when you step outside? Walking through a street with display-based glasses instantly reveals the trade-off nobody mentions. Ranio X2 can show directions right in front of you, which sounds perfect until you realize how sensitive the balance is. Too much information, and you feel mentally cluttered. Too little, and you wonder why it's there at all. In practice, these glasses stick to short, glanceable prompts. Arrows appear briefly. Text stays readable but restrained. And this creates something interesting. You're still looking at the world first, information second. That doesn't sound dramatic, but it's exactly why the experience doesn't collapse under daily use. The glasses help you orient, not escape. But wait, what happens when you stop moving? When you sit down for work, study, or just to scroll endlessly like every human does now? This is where XR-style glasses like XR-EAL Air 2 Pro enter the conversation again. Not as rivals, but as complements. You plug them in and suddenly your posture changes. Your neck straightens. Your phone stays lower. The screen floats where your eyes naturally rest. That alone changes how long you can watch or work without fatigue. But this matters only if you're stationary. The moment you try to treat these like casual eyewear, reality pushes back. The cable reminds you, the weight reminds you. And that's not a flaw. It's the device telling you what it's meant for. Now here's something most reviews skip because it sounds boring, but it decides everything. Heat. Glasses that warm up near your temples or nose break trust fast. Xiaomi understood this deeply with its smart glasses design, keeping processing off the frame and letting the phone handle the heavy work. That decision doesn't look impressive on a spec sheet, but on your face, it's obvious. Cooler frames. Longer wear, less irritation. And suddenly you're not counting minutes anymore. You're counting hours. This is why people underestimate Xiaomi's approach. It's not flashy, but it survives reality. And speaking of reality, let's talk about cameras because this is where social friction lives. First-person cameras sound amazing until you remember other people exist. Meta Ray-Ban solved this with a visible LED that's impossible to miss. That tiny detail changes everything. People relax because they understand what's happening. Transparency creates trust. Xiaomi follows the same philosophy, making capture feel intentional, not sneaky. Snap's spectacles take this even further by making cameras part of the social experience instead of hiding them. Everyone knows what the glasses are for. No ambiguity. And strangely enough, that openness makes people more comfortable, not less. But what about quality? Here's the honest truth. None of these glasses replace your phone camera. And they shouldn't. What they replace is friction. The moment between thinking, I want to capture this, and actually doing it. A laugh, a view. A quick moment that disappears while you fumble for a phone. Glasses win because they remove that delay. The footage feels more human, more honest. Slightly imperfect but real. And that's why creators quietly love them, even if they don't say it out loud. Now let's shift into audio, because audio is the silent hero of smart glasses. Bone conduction and open-ear speakers sound unimpressive until you live with them. You hear your surroundings. You stay present. Cars, people, voices, they're not blocked. Music and calls feel layered onto reality instead of replacing it. And this is why earbuds don't automatically win anymore. Glasses let sound coexist with the world. That's a subtle psychological shift, but once you notice it, it's hard to go back. And then there's AI, not the marketing version. The real one. The one that either helps you or annoys you within 24 hours. The smartest glasses don't talk much, they listen, they wait. Whether it's Meta's voice assistant, Xiaomi's phone-driven AI, or Google-powered Android XR systems, the pattern is the same. The less you have to explain, the better it feels. Ask a question naturally, get a short answer, move on. No ceremonies, no menus, no mode switching. When AI behaves like a conversation instead of a feature, it finally earns its place. But here's where things quietly get intense. Because, as glasses become more capable, they start remembering. Not in a creepy sci-fi way, but in a useful one. What you asked earlier, where you were, what you were doing. Context builds. And context is power. Power to help, power to distract. Power to shape behavior. This is why trust becomes the real battleground in 2026. Not megapixels. Not processing speed. Trust. Do you trust your glasses to stay quiet when you're thinking? Do you trust them not to interrupt moments that matter? Do you trust the company behind them to handle data responsibly? These aren't hypothetical questions anymore. They're daily ones. And the glasses that survive aren't the most advanced, they're the most well-behaved. This is also where shared AR re-enters the picture in a deeper way. Snap's spectacles. Feel like toys until you see what shared presence actually does to people. Laughter increases, conversations change. Attention shifts outward instead of inward. Digital objects don't isolate you, they connect you. And suddenly, smart glasses aren't about productivity or efficiency anymore. They're about memory, experience, togetherness. And that's a powerful lane to occupy, even if it looks messy at first. So by now, something should feel different. This no longer feels like a gadget category searching for purpose. It feels like several categories quietly forming rules of their own. Everyday glasses, display glasses, immersion glasses, shared experience glasses. Each one asking less of you than the generation before it. Each one fitting into life a little more naturally. And this is why buying smart glasses in 2026 feels less risky than it ever has. Not because everything is perfect, but because expectations are finally realistic. You're no longer promised a replacement for reality. You're Offered an assistant for specific moments. And that's a deal people actually accept. But we're not done yet. Because we still haven't talked about the one thing that ties all of this together. The moment when smart glasses stop being exciting and start being normal. The moment when you don't think about wearing them at all. That shift doesn't happen with a headline. It happens quietly, gradually. And in the next part, we're going to look at exactly how close we are to that moment and why it might arrive faster than anyone expects. By the time smart glasses reach this stage, something subtle happens and most people miss it. You stop testing them. You stop thinking in terms of features. You stop asking what they can do. Instead, you start noticing how your behavior changes. When they're on, and how empty certain moments feel when they're not. This is the phase where wearables stop being gadgets and start becoming habits. And it's also the phase where weak designs quietly fall out of rotation without anyone announcing it. Let's talk about the moment glasses earn or lose their place in your daily routine. Not during a commute, not during work, but during the in-between spaces of life. Waiting, wandering, doing nothing in particular. These are the moments where technology usually fails because there's nothing obvious to optimize. No task, no goal, just time passing. Put on Meta Ray-Ban glasses during these moments and something interesting happens. Nothing. And that's the point. You're not flooded with suggestions. You're not nudged to engage. The glasses sit there like a silent companion. If a call comes in, you take it. If you want music, it's there. If you want to capture a moment, it's instant. Otherwise, the world stays exactly as it was. This restraint is why people underestimate how carefully these glasses are designed. They don't try to justify themselves every minute. They wait until invited. That patience builds trust faster than any feature list ever could. Now contrast that with display-based glasses because this is where things get psychologically fascinating. Ranio X2 doesn't constantly show information, but the fact that it can means your brain is aware of it. Even when the display is quiet. You know, it's there. And that awareness changes posture, attention, and decision-making in small ways. You walk a little more confidently in unfamiliar places because directions can appear if needed. You hesitate less in conversations across languages because translation is an option. These aren't dramatic changes, they're microshifts. But compounded over days, they reshape behavior. This is where the idea of worth buying stops being about specs and starts being about alignment. Ranio X2 isn't trying to disappear. It's trying to assist. And assistance, by definition, makes its presence felt. Some people love that. Others don't. Neither reaction is wrong. It simply reveals what kind of relationship you want with technology. Now let's step into one of the most overlooked environments for smart glasses: social silence. Sitting with other people without actively interacting. On a train, in a cafe, at a family gathering. This is where phones dominate because they give you something to do without committing to engagement. Glasses change that dynamic in ways that are still unfolding. With audio-first glasses, you stay more available. You're not head down. You're not fully withdrawn. Music plays, but eyes stay up. You hear someone speak your name. You notice expressions. This keeps you half present instead of fully removed. It's a softer form of disengagement, and that matters socially, even if we don't have language for it yet. Display glasses take a different risk. Information appears in your line of sight, which means designers must be extremely careful. Every unnecessary notification becomes intrusive faster than on a phone. This is why confirmed implementations stay conservative. Glanceable. Text. Minimal prompts. No constant feeds. The companies that don't respect this rule lose users quietly, because no one wants to feel like their own vision is being hijacked. And then there's shared AR, which flips the entire dynamic upside down. Snap spectacles don't try to reduce social friction, they redefine it. When two people wear them at the same time, phones feel oddly antisocial by comparison. You're not retreating into a private screen. You're pointing at something that exists between you. A shared object, a shared joke, a shared moment. This kind of interaction feels awkward at first because we're not trained for it. But awkwardness is usually the first sign of a new norm forming. Now let's talk about longevity, not battery life, but mental longevity. How long can you tolerate a device before it starts to feel like work? XR glasses with large virtual screens are incredible in bursts, a flight, a hotel room, a focused work session, but they ask for intention. You don't casually put them on just because. That's not a flaw, it's clarity. These are tools, not companions. Xiaomi-style lightweight glasses, on the other hand, invite casual wear. You don't plan around them. You don't think, I'm about to use smart glasses. You just put them on like normal eyewear. And that distinction might be the most important one in the entire category. The less mental effort a device demands, the longer it survives in your life. This brings us to a quiet truth no launch event likes to admit. Most people don't want immersive technology most of the time. They want relief from friction, faster access, fewer gestures, less interruption. Smart glasses succeed when they reduce steps, not when they add layers. That's why AI behavior matters more than raw capability. Confirmed implementations don't chase constant proactivity. They wait for natural language. They respond briefly. They don't lecture. They don't assume urgency unless you signal it. This is AI learning manners, and manners determine whether something feels like help or noise. And noise is the enemy of wearables. Now consider something slightly uncomfortable: how smart glasses shape memory. When capture becomes effortless, you record more, but you also remember differently. First-person footage feels immersive, but it also externalizes memory. You rely less on recall and more on review. This isn't inherently bad, but it's a shift worth noticing. Devices that make capture intentional through physical buttons or visible cues slow this down just enough to keep moments meaningful. Again, restraint shows up as wisdom. As weeks pass, the novelty wears off. This is where most reviews end, but this is where truth begins. Glasses that felt exciting start collecting dust. Glasses that felt boring become indispensable. And this pattern repeats across every successful wearable category in history. Smart glasses that win in 2026 aren't the ones people talk about most online. They're the ones people stop mentioning entirely because they've blended into routine. They become part of getting dressed, part of leaving the house, part of how you move through space without thinking about technology at all. And here's the quiet realization that starts to form. There doesn't need to be one pair that does everything. The pressure to unify disappears. You might own audio-first glasses for daily wear, XR glasses for travel or work, and occasionally borrow or wear shared AR glasses for experiences. This isn't fragmentation, it's specialization. And specialization is a sign of maturity, not failure. Which brings us to the emotional core of this entire shift. Smart glasses aren't competing for your attention anymore. They're competing for your trust. Trust to know when to surface information. Trust to stay silent when nothing needs to be said. Trust to exist near your senses without overpowering them. Companies that understand this design for absence as much as presence, they focus on what not to show, what not to interrupt, what not to record. And ironically, those omissions are what make the devices feel respectful. So when someone asks which smart glasses are actually worth buying in 2026, the honest answer isn't a brand name, it's a question in return. What moments do you want help with? What moments do you want left alone? What kind of relationship do you want with technology when it's sitting on your face, right next to your eyes and ears? Because once wearables reach this point, the line between tool and companion blurs. And the choices you make aren't just about tech anymore, they're about boundaries. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Because the final shift isn't about hardware at all. It's about social permission. When smart glasses stop being explained, when no one asks what they do, when the only question left is which ones you prefer, that moment is closer than it feels. And in the final part, we're going to talk about what happens when smart glasses cross that line and why, once they do, there's no going back. There's a point in every technology cycle where the debate quietly changes tone. It's no longer about, is this ready? And it's not even about, is this worth it? Instead, the conversation shifts to something far more revealing. Why wouldn't I wear this? That's the line smart glasses are approaching in 2026. And once a product crosses that threshold, it stops being optional in the way gadgets usually are. It becomes contextual, situational, expected. And that's when things get interesting. Because when technology reaches your face, your eyes, your ears, your immediate awareness, it stops being about convenience and starts being about consent. Phones demand attention. Laptops demand posture. Watches demand glances. Smart glasses demand something else entirely. permission to exist within your perception. And not every company earns that permission the same way. By now you can feel how the market has separated itself, not by price alone, not by specs, but by philosophy. Some devices are designed to enhance reality. Others are designed to overlay it. Others still are designed to disappear into it. None of those paths is inherently better, but they each come with consequences that only reveal themselves over time. Take audio-first smart glasses again, because this category is easy to dismiss until you live with it. In daily use, these glasses do something phones never quite managed. They let you stay reachable without being reachable. You hear messages instead of reading them. You answer calls without breaking eye contact. You listen to directions without staring at a screen. And over time, you start noticing something strange. You feel less pulled, less fragmented. Your attention doesn't shatter as often. This isn't because the technology is smarter, it's because it's quieter. That quietness changes social dynamics in subtle but meaningful ways. People don't wait while you check something. Conversations pause less, moments resume faster. And because the glasses don't visually signal interaction, the boundary between being online and offline softens. You're not performing connectivity anymore. You're just present, with assistance in the background. Now compare that to display-based smart glasses, which operate on a different kind of trust. These devices ask you to accept information inside your field of view, even if it's minimal. And that's a much more intimate request. Every confirmed implementation that survives long-term understands this. The display isn't constant. It's contextual. It waits for intent. When directions appear, they're brief. When translations show up, they fade. Nothing lingers longer than necessary because the moment it does, your brain resists it. This is why heads-up displays on glasses feel so different from notifications on phones. On a phone, interruption is external. On glasses, interruption is internal. It's happening where you look. And that means tolerance is lower, the bar is higher. A device that fails here doesn't annoy you, it exhausts you. And exhaustion is fatal to wearables. XR glasses with large displays sit even further along the spectrum. They don't ask to blend into life. They ask to replace part of it temporarily. When you put them on, you enter a different mode. Focused, intentional, removed. This is why they excel in travel, gaming, and productivity sessions, but rarely in everyday wear. They're not meant to disappear. They're meant to transform. And transformation, by nature, is something you choose, not something you live in constantly. Understanding this distinction is critical to understanding why there will never be one best smart glasses product. The market isn't converging. It's crystallizing. Each category is becoming more confident in what it is and what it isn't. And this brings us to the last, most underestimated factor, social permission. Every wearable has to pass an unspoken test. Not in reviews, not in benchmarks, but in public. How do people react when they notice it? Do they ask questions? Do they joke? Do they tense up? Do they ignore it entirely? This reaction determines whether a device integrates into society or stays on the fringes. Audio-first glasses have an advantage here because they look familiar. There's no visible display, no obvious interface. Most people assume they're just glasses or sunglasses. That invisibility reduces friction immediately. XR glasses accept the opposite trade-off. They look like technology, and they're fine with that because they're not asking to be worn everywhere. Shared AR glasses challenge social norms in a different way. They make technology visible, but shared. When multiple people wear them, suspicion gives way to curiosity. When only one person does, it can feel isolating. This means their success depends less on individual adoption and more on group dynamics. They thrive in events, spaces, and experiences, not daily errands. Again, specialization reveals itself. What matters is that each of these categories has now found a defensible reason to exist. They're no longer prototypes searching for relevance. They're tools waiting for alignment. And alignment happens when expectation matches experience. In 2026, people won't be shocked by smart glasses. They'll be selective. They'll say things like, "Oh, those are for travel," or "those are good for work," or "those are just for everyday stuff." And once a technology earns that kind of casual categorization, it's crossed a critical threshold. It's no longer trying to prove itself. It's just there. That's the moment when hardware decisions start to matter less than behavior. How often do you actually use voice commands? How often do you let the glasses stay silent? How often do you take them off without realizing you've been wearing them for hours? These are the metrics that don't show up in spec sheets, but they decide longevity. And here's the part no company can fully control: how these devices change you. Not dramatically, not overnight, but incrementally. You stop reaching for your phone as often. You walk with more awareness. You rely on gentle prompts instead of constant checking. Or, alternatively, you schedule focused sessions where you step out of the real world entirely. Different glasses encourage different behaviors. And over time, those behaviors shape habits. Habits shape identity. That's why this category feels heavier than others. It's not just computing moving closer to your body. It's computing moving closer to your perception. And perception is where meaning forms. So when people ask whether smart glasses are ready, they're asking the wrong question. The technology is ready. The real question is whether we are ready to decide how much help we want and when. Some people will want guidance layered onto the world. Others will want silence with optional assistance. Others will want escape and immersion. None of these preferences is temporary. They're expressions of how individuals relate to information, distraction, and control. And that's why 2026 isn't about a single launch or a single breakthrough. It's about normalization. The year smart glasses stop being surprising and start being selective. The year wearing them doesn't mean you're early, it means you're specific. Specific about what you value. Specific about where you want technology involved. Specific about where you don't. Once that happens, the market no longer needs hype. It needs balance. And balance is exactly what the most successful devices are quietly prioritizing. Lighter frames. Longer wear. Fewer interruptions. Clearer intent. Not because it sounds good in marketing, but because anything else fails when worn for hours at a time. So when you step back and look at the entire landscape of smart glasses in 2026, the story isn't about who won, it's about who understood restraint. Who realized that the future of wearables isn't louder, brighter, or more aggressive, but calmer, subtler, and more respectful of human attention. Because once technology reaches your eyes, it's no longer competing with other devices. It's competing with your own thoughts. And only the ones that know when to step back will be welcome there.